whether we have hot weather or cold weather, so on and so forth. So point being is the charter is, in my opinion, antiquated in how it treats the accounting for an enterprise fund. We comply with it to the extent that we have the numbers that facilitate the various things. I would argue that it really needs to be not dictated in the charter, but by accounting compliance with generally accepted accounting. Not the transfer, but all the other components of the different sections are fairly antiquated, in my opinion. In my prior career next door in Burbank, we had a single electric fund. We had a single water fund. We don't have that here, so, just by way of comparison.
Okay, you're next, Mr. Zavos, sorry. Followed by Aram Kazazi.
My name's Harry Zavos. I'm a citizen of Glendale, and I want to tell you why I come here. I come here because I feel it's a civic duty, and I've come here with the water transfer fees and the electrical transfer fees because I believe we live in a country where our government is a government of laws, not of men. And all I want is my city government to obey the law, and I'm open to be persuaded by a technical memorandum that specifically addresses the points I raise, that I'm incorrect in my conclusions. And I want to say this. Antiquated as the charter may seem under modern accounting practices, it still remains the fundamental law of this city, and under the state constitution, it cannot be trumped or modified by accounting practices only by a vote of the people. Now, I don't want to discuss the transfer made tonight, but I want to discuss transfers in general from the GWP. And I read now specifically from Section 20 of Article 11 of the Constitution, which defines the amount of money that can go from the water and electric revenue funds into the surplus fund. And I read, the credit balance, if any, or any part thereof, in each of said funds, water and electric revenue funds, at the end of any fiscal year, the amount of which is in excess of the amount of all outstanding demands and liabilities unpaid from said fund on account of budget appropriations therefrom, shall be transferred to Glendale Water and Power Surplus Fund. It defines what goes into the surplus fund, and it can't be a specific appropriated amount because the charter says it's what's left over after you've taken care of and accounted for all of appropriated amounts. Now, when you go to 22, which is a surplus fund, and the only fund from which GWP funds can be used for something other than GWP, it does mention 25% of the operating budgets, but not as money in that fund, but money which can be transferred from monies which are already in that fund and which I've already indicated 20 has defined. Let me read it so we all hear it. At the end of each fiscal year, an amount equal to 25% of the operating revenues of the Department of Glendale Water and Power for each year, excluding receipts from water or power supplied to other cities or utilities at wholesale rates, shall be transferred from, not in.
Please
from.
don't yell.
You don't have to
Mr.
yell.
Zavos, please don't yell.
I'm sorry. It's the Greek in me. Shall be transferred from said water and power surplus fund to the general reserve fund. So I really would like to have the city attorney provide a technical memorandum, because if in fact you take serious that the amount that can be transferred from the revenue funds is 25%, it essentially renders meaningless the paragraph I earlier read that says, no, the amount that goes into the surplus fund is any excess left over after you take care of all the budgeted appropriations. Now, I would ask the public, again, to go to www.ogcc.org/Zavos with a capital Z .pdf and read these provisions for themselves. I think they are very easy to read. 20 says the money that goes into the general surplus fund is only the excess that's left over after you take care of appropriated budget appropriations. Once in that surplus fund, then it says that 25% of the operating revenue can be transferred to the general reserve fund. It doesn't say that if there's no money in there, you still transfer 25% of the operating budgets of GWP. And finally, it goes to the general reserve fund, which Section 15 of the Charter, Article 11 of the Charter, says is a revolving fund to advance monies to other funds pending the collection of taxes, so they can be on a cash basis, and after the taxes are collected, they go back to that reserve fund. And if that doesn't comply with modern accounting principles, what we ought to do is change the charter, not have modern accounting principles essentially modify the charter contrary to the state constitution, which says it's only a vote of the people that can do that.